All right, so this is, I'm just going to go through the answers in the review packet, as many as we can get to in the next hour. My advice would be to especially review your vocab. You can take the sets from Quizlet and combine them into one if you'd like, or just do a couple at a time. Like, make sure you review chapter 1, there's a lot of vocab. The chapter with all the, chapter 5 with all your medians and centroids and circumcenters. You have to know all that vocab, okay? So this is just like the collinear points. Number 1 should have been B. Number 2 should have been C. 3 should have been B. Okay, you can only name a plane by either a solid letter that would be written in the corner, like if this was an M over here that didn't have a dot next to it, I could call that plane M. Or I have to name it by 3 non-collinear points. So the line is PQ, which a line can either be named by 2 points or by a lowercase italicized letter, like L. I could call that line L. Or by two letters that are on that line. Okay, so QP is the line, or PQ is the line, and then it had to be plain Q, PQS. Number 4 was, are the points collinear or non-collinear? C is here, G is here, H is here. They don't lie on the same line. Those would be non-collinear. Okay, they would be coplanar, though, if that was a question. Number 5, are M, N, and O collinear? If so, name the line that they lie on. And they are collinear. They all lie on the same line. You could have called that line MO, line MN, line NO. Any of those would have worked. So all of these questions, just like they are here, will be multiple choice. Number 6, name the plane represented by the front of the box. So we could call it GBF. You could have called it GCF, GCB, any combination of those front letters. We're still good, right? Any questions so far? Okay, A, what are the names of the 3 planes that contain point A? So A, B, C, D, A, B, D, C, A, B, F, E, and A, C, H, F are all planes that contain A. 8 says, name the ray in the figure. So this is ray AB, and the A has to have the point, and the B has to have the arrow. So that's why D is the answer. A is also a ray, but the B has the point, and the A has the arrow, which is why it's wrong. 9 is C. What's the name of the ray opposite BD, which would be ray BA? Opposite rays have to have the same end point, but the arrows point in opposite directions. 10, what are the names of the segments in this figure? So there's AB, there's BC, and there's AC. Questions on those? Okay, 11, name the intersection of plane ACG and BCG. You didn't even need a picture. You have to look for the letters that overlap this time, which are C and G. And 2 planes intersect at a line. 12, what's the intersection of STXW and SVUW, which would be plane ST. This time you had a picture. But again, if you don't, just look at the letters that overlap. ST are the 2 letters that overlap, and it would be, again, a line. 13, name the 4th point on plane WXV, which is U. 15, which plane contains points C, D, and G, which is that front plane. 15, what's the length of AC? So you could have either counted from A to C, or C minus a negative, or 5 minus a negative 8, which becomes 13. 16, this is your segment addition postulate. So EF is 6 and EG is 21. The whole thing's 21, subtract the 6 and you get the 15. 18, EF is 2x minus 12 and FG is 3x minus 15, and they give you the whole thing's 23. So add up the 2 parts and set it equal to 23, and you should have gotten x is 10. And then it also wanted EF and FG. Plug it back in, and it was 8 and 15. 20, what segment's congruent to AC? So first you had to figure out that AC was 6, and then look through your choices, and BE was the only one that was 6. 21, Z is the midpoint. What are X, RZ, and RT? So if it's the midpoint, you would set those 2 segments equal to each other and get X is 20. Plug it back in, and you got 150. The 150 was already there, so you should have been able to determine that from the picture too, but it's a good way to check. Questions on that page? Okay, 22, which point is the midpoint of AE? So find the distance between A and E, which is 14. Cut it in half at 7. And they either add 7 to the A or subtract 7 from the E. Either way, you would have gotten D. Then we got to angles. So again, you want to review definitions of angles. You want to know acute, obtuse, straight, right, all those things. So this one said, judging by appearance, name an acute angle, an obtuse angle, and a right angle. Be careful and make sure it goes in that order. So acute should have been U, obtuse, W, and right, V. No, Y, sorry. Questions on that page? 25. What are the measures of F, B, G, and A, B, C? So you're just using the protractor. FBG is 35, which is acute, and ABC is 180, which is straight. 26, you're trying to figure out which angle is congruent to GDF. GDF has one arc, and so does EDF. Still good, right? Still okay. 27, complete the statement. You're saying that GDF is 54, which means that EDF would also be 54, because those two are congruent. 28 says if AOC is 85, so the big angle is 85. BOC is 2x plus 10, which is the smaller angle on the bottom. And AOB is 4x minus 15, which is the bigger angle, or the smaller angle on top. So this is your angle addition postulate. Take those two expressions, add them together, set them equal to 85, and solve for x. You get x is 15. So be careful, because most of these instructions, when you're solving for x, the question is not asking for x. This one says, find the degree measure of BOC and AOB. So in the choices, it's kind of telling you, which hopefully you figure that out. But sometimes it's just going to say, give the angle, the measure of angle BOC. And when you look at your choices, x, what you got for x will definitely be a choice. Don't be careless and pick it. Make sure that you read and look that you're looking for BOC or whatever it is they're asking for. So in this case, you got to plug it back in and you get 40, and then either subtract that from 85 to get 45, or plug it in to the AOC expression, and you should get 45. 29, these are your vertical angles. So if DEF is 119, then so is HEG. And then the other two missing angles would be 61, because those are linear pair. So you've got two special kind of angles in this one. Vertical angles, which obviously you need to review all this stuff. Vertical angles and linear pair. Okay, so what's true about the measures of vertical angles? They're congruent. And what's true about a linear pair? Adds to 180. Good. Okay, 30. So this one said EOF is 26 and FOG is 38. Find the measure of EOG. So you just have to add those two together, and you'd get 64. 31. Name an angle that is supplementary to angle COD, which is BCOA. Supplementary would add up to 180, which would form a line. 32. Angle complementary, which would sum to 90, would be DCOD. Questions on that one? Okay, now we're back to vertical angles. So vertical to EGH would be IGF. Adjacent, which means next to. Adjacent to DGE would be EGH. 35, supplementary angles are two angles who have the sum of 180 and complements 90. 36, two angles whose sides are opposite rays are called vertical angles. Two coplanar angles with common side and common vertex and no common interior points are called adjacent angles. So that's how you'll see vocab kind of thrown in there. Questions on that one? All right, C says, what can you conclude from this diagram? So there's a lot of stuff going on. You've got a right angle. You've got two sets of congruency marks, so OP is equal to PN, and NM is equal to ML. And then angle PQN is a right angle. So you can also say that PQO is a right angle. So C of those were the answers that were correct. Probably going to be easier to eliminate on that question. 38, complement of angle is 53. What's the measure? So you got to subtract it from 90, and you'd get 37. 39, these two are complementary angles, so I add them together and I set them equal to 90, and you get 48. Plug it back in. One angle is 52, or sorry, yeah. One angle is 52. One angle is 48, and the other one's 42, because you have to plug it back in. Number 40 is B. 1 and 2 are linear pair, which means that they sum to 180, set them equal to each other, or sorry, add them and set them equal to 180. Okay, we get to angle bisector. So what's true about an angle bisector? What does it do? Cuts an angle into two congruent angles, right? So for C, 6x minus 20 would equal 2x plus 36, and x is 14. And then plug it back in to get that it's 128 for the angle, for the big angle. And again, be careful there, because if you only plug it into 1, you're going to get 64, which of course is a choice. Make sure you read really carefully, especially with the angle letters. Don't get confused, because there's no partial credit on multiple choice. Okay, so you need to be really careful. Number 44 is C. This time it gives you one of the angles in the whole angle. So you have to double that x plus 31 and set it equal to the big angle. X is 28. Plug it back in to find NMO, which is 59. 46 is the midpoint. So this is the first of the formulas that you're going to want to know, which is the midpoint formula. So if you want to put like a little reference sheet together, which would be my advice, is to make sure you include all your formulas. And the first is that midpoint. So with midpoint, you add the two x's and divide by 2, add the two y's and divide by 2. 49 is the midpoint, except that this time it gives you the midpoint and the coordinate of one of the endpoints. So this is where I have to split it. So the work for this is here. I would have split this down the middle and said the x is on the left and the y is on the right. So the x coordinate of the midpoint equals x1 plus x2 over 2, and I end up getting that the x2 is 6. And the y coordinate of the midpoint is 5, so I get 5 equals the y1 plus y2 over 2, and I end up with y is 3. You can also, with multiple choice, work backwards from your answers there. So if you get stuck, you might want to take your answer choices and add them. So 9 plus 8 divided by 2 is not 7. 6 plus 8 divided by 2 is 7. So you can always do it that way. That's when the benefit of multiple choice comes into play.
Wait, how did you do that?
The plug in or the workout.
How did you do with the multiple choice?
So just take each of these points here and combine them with the other end point. Add the x's, divide by 2, and see if you get the x on the midpoint. So if I do the first one, 9 plus 8 is 17. Divide that by 2, it's not 7. And then go to the next one. 6 plus 8 is 14. 14 divided by 2 is 7. So then check that y. 3 plus 7 is 10. 10 divided by 2 is 5. That's the one I know that works. I actually think that question is way easier to plug in than it is to work out initially. Okay, second formula you need to know is the distance formula. So for 51... it says to find the distance between 2 points. Square root of x2 minus x1 squared minus y2, that should be a plus y2. Plus y2 minus y1 squared. And you get b, which is, it said to approximate. So when I got the square root of 61, I know that was in between the square root of 49 and the square root of 64, so it had to be 7.8. Okay, 52, which is down here in the red, says Noam walks home from school by walking 8 blocks north and then 6 blocks east. How much shorter would his walk been if it was a direct path? So if I plot this on a coordinate plane, this point would have been 0, 8, this point would have been 6, 8, and I would have started at 0, 0. So he went 8 up and 6 to the right, which means he traveled a total of 14. And if I wanted to figure out if there was a direct path, I would use the distance formula on the bottom, and it would have been 10. So it didn't ask for how far, which is obviously tricky. This is when you got to be really careful with multiple choice. It said how much shorter would it have been. So I had to take the 14 minus the 10 to get the 4. Number 53, the bus travels. One of them goes 4 miles west and 2 miles south, and the other one goes 4 miles east and 5 miles north. So I did the same thing. I put it on a coordinate grid. The point in the middle would have been 0, 0. The top right point would have been 4, 5. The bottom left, -4, -2. Find the distance between those points, and you should have gotten the square root of 113, which is in between 100 and 121, or in between 10 and 11, which was A, 10.6. Questions on those? Okay, 57 was the perimeter of ABC. So the vertical and the horizontal you can just count. Up 8 to the right 6. And then the hypotenuse, you could have used the distance formula to figure it out, which would have been 10. And then add your 3 lengths together, and you get 24. '66 and 67 were yours. So this is the deductive reasoning and inductive reasoning. This is the pattern. 66, you went from 9 to 15, 15 to 21, 21 to 27. So what's happening each time there? Adding 6. So just add 6 to 27. Get 33. Add 6 to that. You get 39. 67, you went from 9 to 9/5 to 9 over 25 to 9 over 125 to 9 over 625. What's happening each time? Good. Multiplying the bottom by 5. So do it again 2 times and you get 3,125. And then 625. Which,
Remember you said when I was talking
that's not this one.
Oh.
Yeah, no, you're talking by conditional. Except when it's only if and only if. And conclusion is what follows the word then. So if 2 lines intersect at right angles, then the 2 lines are perpendicular. The hypothesis is 2 lines intersect at right angles. And the conclusion is 2 lines are perpendicular. Okay, you need to know your P and Q. So the P is your hypothesis, and the Q is your conclusion. So an initial statement would have been if P, then Q. Okay? P hypothesis, Q conclusion. 79 says write the statement as a conditional in the if-then form. So you've got a statement, all triangles have 3 sides. So if a figure is a triangle, then it has 3 sides, would be D. This one. 82. All right, so number 81 says, what is the converse of the following conditional? So converse means switch it, right? So in this section, we need to know converse. We need to know inverse. We need to know contrapositive. We need to know counterexample. And biconditional. So if my original statement is P then Q, then my converse, I switch the order, so it'd be Q then P. The inverse, we negate the original, so we say if not P, not Q. Contrapositive, we combine the 2, we switch it and negate it. So not Q, not P. And a counterexample is something that makes the if true, but the then false. So if you're wearing ski clothes, then you are going skiing. True statement? No, what would be a counterexample? You could just be cold, okay? So the if is that you're still wearing ski clothes. The then is that you're not going skiing. So you came to McCarthy today, okay? All right, 81, write the converse. So we switch the order. If the coordinates are of a point are negative, then the point is in the fourth quadrant. 82, if it says write the converse. The converse is if x squared equals 49, then x is 7. And then it says if the converse is also true, combine the statements to form a biconditional. So this one's false because you could also have x be negative 7. So that would have been a counterexample. 83 says if two lines are parallel, they do not intersect. So the converse of that would be if two lines do not intersect and they're parallel. This would be false. What would be a counterexample? What are two lines that don't intersect that aren't parallel? Skew. It says it in the question, guys. A, okay, the two lines could be skew. 84, when a conditional and its converse are true, you can combine them as a true, and that's biconditional statement. So it's an if and only then, if and only if statement. 85, determine whether the conditional and its converse are both true. If they're both true, combine them as a biconditional. If an angle is a right angle, its measure is 90 degrees. Converse, if an angle is a right angle, if an angle measures 90, then it is a right angle. So those are both true. This one can be combined for a biconditional statement. If an angle, an angle is a right angle if and only if its measure is 90 degrees. '86. Write the two conditional statements to make the following biconditional. So we're working backwards this time. I drink juice if and only if it's breakfast time. So the initial statement could be I drink juice if it's breakfast time, or if I drink juice, then it's breakfast time. And the other is if it's breakfast time, then I drink juice, which is B. Questions on that one? Okay, then you need to know law of detachment. So law of detachment means if the if occurs, then the then will occur. So if x equals 7, then 7x minus 2 equals 47. And the x is 7, which means C, 7x minus 2 equals 47. 92, if two angles are complementary, the sum of their measures is 90. E and F are complementary, so you can assume that E plus F equals 90 degrees. Those are law of detachment. If the if occurs, then the then will occur. Law of syllogism. Remember the law of syllogism was an if-then. The then occurred again with a new as the if, and then you link the very first one to the last one. So if you exercise regularly, you'll have a healthy body. If you have a healthy body, you'll have more energy. Put the if of the first with the then of the second, which would be if you exercise regularly, you'll have more energy. 96, if it's Friday night, then there's a football game. If there's a football game, then Joseph is wearing his school colors. It's Friday night, which means he's wearing his school colors. Questions on those? Those are your logics. Okay, 98, started your proof. So there's going to be some like this where you're filling in your steps. And then there's going to be two that are open-ended. Okay, they are not difficult, but there are two. So what's the value of x for this one? You've got your given statement. Oh, no, sorry, they didn't even use the given. They're just using your diagram. So PQR plus SQR equals PQS. That's your angle addition postulate. And then they substituted in, they simplified, the addition property, adding 12 to the other side, and then dividing by 2, the division property. 99, it said BD bisects ABC, so I drew a diagram. AB is 7x, and ABC is 7x, and ABD is 3x plus 36. So you would add those two. There's two 7x's technically in that. Oh no, the 7x is the big one. There's two 3x plus 36. So I had to do 3x plus 36 plus 3x plus 36 equals 7. I get x is 72. And again, this is one of those ones that's kind of tricky because x is 72 and 72 is a choice, but you have to make sure that you read to know that you have to plug it back in to get D, B, C. 100, name the property of equality. So if L equals M, then M equals L. That's symmetric. So you definitely want to review your properties, all your algebraic properties, which again are in a Quizlet for that chapter. Transitive, if CD equals EF and EF equals GH, then CD equals GH. Multiplication, if 5x divided by 9 is 36, 5x would equal 36 times 9, which is 324. Substitution, if y equals 5 and 7x plus y equals 11, then 7x plus negative 5 would equal 11. So you're substituting negative 5 in for y. Questions so far? Still with me? Yeah? Okay, 104, property of congruence. It justifies the statement. If mn equals lk, then lk equals mn. That is symmetric. If a equals b and b equals c, then a equals c. That is transitive. Complete the proof. This time it's an algebraic proof. So you've got your given. And then you plug negative 5 in, which was substitution. Added the negative 60, addition, divided by negative 6, division. And then E is just symmetric, so you flip the left side to equal the right. All of those you have to know your properties. 108 was vertical angles. 8x minus 8 equals 7x plus 8. Set them equal to each other. Solve for 16. $110, if angle 2 is 30, then angle 4 is 30 because those are vertical angles. 111, you had to sit 7x plus 7 equal to 112. Solve for x, which is 15. And then 112 plus 4y equals 180. Those are a linear pair. And y is 17. Question on either of those? Okay, 113. What four segments are parallel to MRQL? So MRQL is the side on the right. You needed them to be coplanar. So they had a lie and a plane with that box, but they needed to not touch, which is C, JK, JN, NP, and KP. And 114, which four segments are perpendicular? Perpendicular means they had to intersect that plane at a right angle, which would be JM, KL, PQ, and NR. 115, identify a pair of alternate exteriors. So these are your alternate exterior, alternate interior, corresponding, and same side interior, or sorry, consecutive interior. Those four different special angles. So 115, at alternate exterior would have been 1 and 5 or 2 and 6. 1 and 5 is the only one that's on that list. 116 says 3 pairs of corresponding angles. So 1 and 7, 2 and 4, 8 and 6, and 3 and 5 are corresponding. D is the only one that had all of those. Not all of them, but 3 of those. Okay, 117, what's the relationship between 4 and 5? So now, or sorry, we're still just identifying the relationship pairs. We don't have parallel lines yet. So 4 and 5 are alternate interior. Yeah. So if the lines are parallel, which special angles are congruent? Corresponding. Alternate exterior. Alternate interior, good. And what's true about consecutive interior? Good. If I could spell. Missing my N. Consecutive interior. supplementary. So for 119, 2 and 138 are corresponding. Those would be congruent. And 2 and 6 are a linear pair. So I had to do 180 minus 138, and I got 42. 120, 47, and a little sliver up that angle at the top would have been alternate exterior, which would be congruent. And then 47, 77, and that missing angle sum to 180. So angle Q would have been 56. Okay, 122. Now you've got two pairs of parallel lines, so that 106 would be the same as this angle at the top. This angle here would match this angle here. And then angle P and that 106 are same side interior, consecutive interior, so they're supplementary. 123, those are same side interior. Add them up and set them equal to 180, and you get x equals 16. Questions on those? 125. So these two, the ones that have the blue arcs, would be corresponding. Those are going to be equal. X minus 5 would equal 72. And then from there, you get that the x is 77. And then all three of these angles have to add up to 180. So if I plug the 77 back in and add it to the 51 plus the y minus 6 and subtract that from 180, or set it equal to 180, I get that y is 63. Okay, 126, angle 3 and angle 6 are alternate interior. So I would say that those lines are parallel, alternate interior, angles converse. 127, if P was parallel to Q, then 1 and 3 would be corresponding and they'd be equal, which would make 9x equal to 117 and x equal to 13. Questions on that one? 129. These are alternate interior angles. 3x minus 43 would equal 80 and x would equal 41. Under there, I erased the question but forgot to erase the answers. That may have confused you. Just cross right through those, okay? 131, these are three angles inside a triangle. The triangle sum theorem tells you they add up to 180. 132, two triangles going on here. So the one on the left, I could have added them and subtracted from 180 and gotten that x was 76. And then the alternate exterior angles theorem tells you that x would equal 13 plus y. And z would equal 46 plus 58. You could have also used your linear pair there, subtracted x from 180 and got z, and then subtracted z and 13 from 180 to get y. So you could do it either way. 133 was the exterior angle, so 105 equals 72 plus x. X is 33. 135, 110, there's a vertical angle there. 110 plus 57 is 167 subtracted from 180 and you get 13. Questions on those? 136, triangular playground has angles 8 to 6 to 4, God bless you, in the ratio. So with a ratio, I don't know what my x is. I don't know what they're going to be multiplied by, but I do know that 4x plus 6x plus 8x would equal 180. So add those up, I get 18x equals 180, which means x is 10. So the shortest side, I would say, is 4 times 10, which is 40. $140 is now slope. So here's another formula you need to know. Okay, slope is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So 6 minus a negative 3 over a 1 minus a negative 6 becomes 9/7. On a question like this, you could literally just counterize of a run too. But you're not always going to be given the picture. 142, this time you want the slope-intercept form for the line. So another equation you need is the point slope, which is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. And for these, you plug in the x1 and the y1 and the slope. So you got to find the slope first, which is 1 over 3, and then pick either point and plug it in, and you get y equals 1/3 x minus 2/3. 143, so these are what you have to know as a vertical line is an x equals a number equation, and a horizontal is a y equals. With the vertical line, I would grab the x, so it would be x equals -7, and with the horizontal line, I'd grab the y, so it would be y equals 4. $145, now I've got to find the equation of a line. So if they're parallel, what's true about their slopes? Same. So I would find the slope of the first line using those points, and it ended up being -1. And the slope of this one was -9 over 2. They're not the same, so they're not parallel. 46, you had to use that to find the actual equation. So I used the first line to get the slope, which was 5, and then I plugged that in with the point that they gave me. And this time it kept it in point slope, which is y minus 1 equals 5 times x plus 6, or d. Well, 148 is the same except it's perpendicular, so what's true about slopes that are perpendicular? Opposite reciprocal, good. So if the slope is 2, then I flip it and change the sign to be -1/2, and then again plug that in with the point. Then we get into congruent triangles, or congruent figures, actually. So if BCDE is congruent to OPQR, then DE is congruent to, pay attention, order of the letters, it would be QR. Then triangles. So in that diagram, ABC has one arc, which would match PNM, which has one arc, or NMP. 151, I drew myself a little diagram. It said that QS would have equaled TU, or TV, sorry. So I set those two equal to each other and got V as 2. And again, be careful because A is 2, so half of you will see 2 and circle it. But the question is not what is X, it is, or V, it is what is the length of QS and TV. All right, so C for 154. The two triangles are congruent, which would mean that the side, like G would equal 5, B would equal 4, angle D would equal 38. Number 155, it says use the information to tell why NM would equal PQ and NOM would equal PMN. Okay, they're both given from your diagram. 156, justify the last two steps of the proof. So the two that are given are there, ST equals TS, that would be reflexive, because anything equals itself. And then the two triangles would be congruent side, side, side. So what are the ways to prove that triangles are congruent? Side, angle, side. Side, side, side. Angle, side, angle. No, there's no A, that you're thinking similar. Angle, angle, side. There's one more, and the one everybody forgets about. Hypotenuse, leg. Okay, 157, name the included angles. So remember the included angles where those two sides meet, which would be angle N. Should be a super easy vocab question. You know those terms. 158, what information do you need in order to prove that the triangles would be congruent using side, angle, side? So in the diagram, they've given me the one pair of sides. AC would be equal to AC because that's reflexive, which would mean you'd need to know that ACB would equal ACD. In this case, the choices that are there could have also been that they're perpendicular, which would mean that those two angles are congruent. State whether these are congruent. So ABC and AED could either be proved by side, side, side or by side, angle, side. Either one would have worked. 160, which ones are congruent by angle, side, angle? This is B. HGF and ABC are the ones that have angle, side angle. Remember, it's got to be included angle, so it's got to be the angle that's in between the two congruent sides. What else must you know to prove the triangles are congruent by angle, side angle? So angle, side angle, I've got the reflexive side, I've got the angle, which means I need the other angle on the other side of the reflexive side, which would be here and here. And then by side angle side, I need this side and this side. 162, from the information, can you prove that the two triangles are congruent? Not by angle, even though all three are given, but we do have the reflexive side, so this would be angle, side angle. $163. So the reflexive side is what they give you, so which means the two triangles would be congruent by side angle side. And then congruent parts of congruent triangles are congruent. That's your CPCTC. Don't forget about that. Which says that if the triangles are congruent, then all their corresponding parts are congruent. 164, this is an isosceles triangle, so if the two sides are congruent, then the angles opposite them are congruent. So subtract 38 from 180 and divide by 2. $165, same thing but in reverse. This time I've got one of the congruent angles. So if that's 56, the one on the right is 56. Add them together, subtract it from 180, and I get 68. 167, so RS equals ST, which makes this an isosceles triangle. And then RST is 7x minus 54. So I would duplicate the congruent angles, 180 minus 8x, because I had to subtract the 8x from that linear pair. Plus 180 minus 8x plus 7x minus 54 should equal 180, and x is 14. This time they actually x, which is 14. 169, the legs of the isosceles triangle have the lengths x plus 1 and negative x plus 7, and the base has a length of 3x minus 3. What's the length of the base? So I had to set the two legs congruent to each other. This is vocab. You have to know legs are the ones that are congruent. So x plus 1 would equal negative x plus 7, set those equal to each other, and x is 3. And then it said, what's the length of the base? You had to plug it back in. 170, you've got your congruent angles on the top, which makes the big triangle, and the big triangle, sorry, an isosceles. 46 on the right means 46 is on the left. Add the 46 and the 44, subtract it from 180, and you get that x is 90. 174, is there enough information to prove? Yes. Triangle ACB is congruent to triangle ACD, and it would be hypotenuse leg if they asked. 176, what additional information would you need? You'd need the other leg, which is AC is equal to DC. 177, what angle do they share? They both share angle C. 179 is now the midpoint. So when a segment hits the midpoints of the sides, it's called the mid-segment, remember, and it's parallel to the third side and half its length. So FB would be half of 30, and AC would be twice 17, which is what they were looking for. 182 times 2x minus 9 would equal 14. X is 8. 181, 2 times 35 would equal 7, which is 70. 186. So if you've got an angle bisector, remember it's equidistant from the sides of the angle. So 9x plus 114 is equal to 15x. Set them equal to each other, and x is 19. Okay, B is now the reverse of that, the converse of that. That says that if it's equidistant, then the angles are congruent. So 4x plus 5 would equal 8x minus 11, and x is 4. And then it doesn't ask for x. It asks for angle RST, which you plug it back in, and you get 42. Circumcenter of the triangle. This is all that vocab. So the circumcenter is where what meets? Huh? What type of segment meets at a circumcenter? So there was medians, there's angle bisectors, there was perpendicular bisectors, and there was altitudes. Which of those meet at the circumcenter? It's perpendicular bisector. So for each of these little segments, and you could eyeball it and get lucky this time, okay? I just found like what would have looked like the middle and drew a perpendicular segment, same thing in all three ways, and it hits at a point that only made sense for one of those points, which was that negative 1/2 and 1 1/2. Okay, 192, where's the circumcenter? So B, perpendicular bisectors of the sides of the triangle. So again, that's all your vocab. You got to know all that. Perpendicular bisectors, angle bisectors, medians. That's all chapter 5. 194, if it's a median, then it means that that is the midpoint of the opposite side. So cut it in half and you get 13. Centroid is where the medians meet, and the medians, that's the 2/3 rule. So from the angle to the centroid, it's 2/3 the length of the whole thing. So GE is 2/3 of the BE, and BG is 1/3 of BE. So I did 2/3 times 18 and got 12, and 1/3 times 18 and got 6. 196 says it's the centroid, so again it's the medians, AD and DM. So AD is 2/3 and DM is 1/3, which means I can say 2 times DM equals AD. And solve for X, I get 4, and it wanted AM, so you got to plug it back in. 197 is the median, so you're looking for the segment that goes from the vertex to the midpoint, which is D. 198, what's the name of the segment inside the large triangle? This would be an altitude. It goes from the vertex to the side opposite at a right angle. $199 was listing the angles, the sides in order. So you want to go, it said shortest to longest. So you want to go the side opposite the smallest angle to the side opposite the longest. And 200 was your triangle inequality sum theorem. So if you have two lengths of a triangle, then the missing length has to be greater than the difference, but less than the sum. And then all this stuff is from chapter 6, the last chapter. So you need to know side angle side similarity, side 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 similarity, angle angle similarity. And you need to know your proportionality theorems, which is on the right. If you've got two parallel lines, then it divides the sides proportionally. If you've got an angle bisector, it divides it proportionally. And then 3 parallel lines and 2 transversals is number 3.